19 messages.
Yeah, Ken, I'm calling at 2 o'clock on Thursday. I just had the colonoscopy, and I have a big tumor in my colon. In other words, I have colon cancer. So I need an operation to get the tumor out. And I need an examination on Monday to find out whether it is spread or not. Outside that, at the moment, I feel good, actually. I feel normal. All right, I'll talk to you. Bye.
I feel like a freak because all I'm good at is writing the melodies. Even my chords are mediocre. My melodies are not mediocre. I can be with a crowd of people and be the loneliest person in the room. I can't talk small talk. I always want to talk about profound things, and most people don't talk that way. So that makes me pretty much alone, yeah. I grew up in a very religious Jewish household. My mother spent all her time feeding and clothing us. I never had a real conversation with her or with my father. My father made his living being a bootlegger, making whiskey and selling it to bars. He once spent a year in jail, but continued after he got out. And when I was 13, he bought a house in Queens and had a still in the basement. I often helped him by soaking the label off used bottles and putting them on other used bottles. I lived Topping Avenue, that was the name of the street, in an apartment house on the second floor. I just remember being about 5 years old, and I was scared of walking in the downstairs hallway. In order to get to my apartment, I had to go on the second floor. And I used to love sitting in the fire escape outside, but I didn't like walking through that hall. That hall was scary. So I used to sing. And a couple of people actually opened their doors and gave me money. So I got the idea of going in the backyard and singing. And they were wrapping in tissues, some coins and throwing it down at me. I moved from from Topping Avenue to Clay Avenue. And on Clay Avenue, there was a dead end, a perfect place for sports. And the street was full of boys. Girls were very, very scarce, and you couldn't even look at one. I mean, we were just boys. We were all boys. That's the way we wanted it. We didn't want anything. I did. I wanted more, but they wouldn't allow it. Sometimes they even locked me in the hallway to stop me from, trying to make friends with girls and so on. When my father moved to Queens, for example, I used to go by myself at the age of to the Bronx to visit my friends, to try to continue living that life that I really enjoyed. And I used to sleep in hallways. I had no place to sleep. That's how much I missed being because I had no friends on Long Island. It was a completely different type of life. It broke my heart, actually, when I was 13, and my father bought that house. I guess he was working someplace, and maybe they were charging too much rent. Don't forget there was 7 of us. So. I used to sleep in the same bed with my brother. With 4 of us, 4 boys slept in one room, two each in the bed. Then I had 3 older sisters. It was nice to have the older sisters because they became your your mother, they helped me a lot. I mean, together, I had, advice and stuff. My mother and father, they were out of it, as far as I can see. I mean, they were decent people, but they just didn't know how to raise children. I tried to get some kind of a profession. I wasn't thinking about acting, I mean, that was still very far away from me. So I went to chicks pattern making school. See, one of my sisters and her husband ran a factory, a clothing factory. My sister was a dress designer. So I tried to learn how to make clothing, how to cut clothing. That time they got a job in Alexander City, Alabama. And I went to live with them for 6 months after graduating from Chicks Pattern Making School. And I got a job in the factory. I learned what it means to be segregated, because that was a segregated factory. The blacks were downstairs in the basement, and they could not come upstairs. They had a separate bathroom for blacks. Even the water fountains were black and white. I remember when we had a party at the factory, I remember me bringing the food down, the cake down to them, in the basement. But they were, and I remember the owner's son, who was about 5 or 6 years old, made a mistake and drank from the water fountains that said black, and his mother came over and smacked him in the face. I mean, that's how things were. During the late 50s and early 60s, I became very active in a peace group called the Committee for Nonviolent Action. And we did a lot of demonstrating all over the country. And during that time, Joan Baez invited us to her house. I also met Pete Seeger. I'm also proud to say I was at the rally when Dr. King gave his I Have a Dream speech.
My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
I always had a sense that we're all human beings. I think anything that divides us is wrong. And there's a lot of things that divide us. Religion, for example. You think about a lot of the trouble in the world today, and always. It was because of religion, because my religion is better than your religion, or my religion tells me to kill you. But when you strip it all away, we're all the same. We're human beings. We can't get to the human part of us. I'm an American. I'm Jewish. I'm white. All these things that mean nothing. We were capable of stripping all that away. You know what? We would see each other for the first time and say, "Oh my God, you're just like me." I also managed to perform in over 150 plays in the past 55 years, 2 of them off Broadway. I really feel I have lived many lives. Something happened to me in the Army. I don't know what it was, but I became extremely interested in education, in learning. I never read a book in my life. You couldn't see me in the Army without a book. I used to, they didn't even know this, I used to stand in inspection. Every morning you have to get up. I always had a book hidden in me, you're not supposed to have that, but I wouldn't go anyplace, and I read and I read and I read and I read, and I got a GED diploma in the Army, but that was totally useless. So I said at the age of 21 I had to go back to high school, but not a regular high school, it was a prep school. And then I came out here. At that time, they were hard up for teachers. They really were. Especially places like Central High School, which was a very bad place to work in. So I got a job in Central High School. And what do you think the first thing that they did every year for a scholarship for a high school kid? A play. The teachers did a play. And my first play was All My Sons, a great, fantastic part of the son in All My Sons. Well, that did it. I mean, after I got finished with that, I was never the same. Acting became such a tremendous need for me. I really don't think I would be able to psychologically survive without the acting. It meant so much to me. It calmed me down. It put me out of my skin. I can play other parts and I can be other people. So I used to go to school. I used to come home and sleep a little bit, have dinner, and go to rehearsal. That was more or less my life for 55 years. It comes from the concept of creativity. I mean, that's why in the beginning I said that creativity is so important. I think it's extremely important. I think it civilizes you. It makes you human. It gets you away from yourself when sometimes you should be getting away from yourself. It's starting with nothing, and you create a character. You create a person who's not you, and yet he is you. I'm not just talking about theater. I'm talking about art. I'm talking about music. I'm talking about anything. What you're doing, photography, everything. And so many people waste because we're all creative. Every single person in the world can be creative.
She's just a friend now, but that's all.
Is that what you tell her I am?
I can't live without it. Obviously, I went from here. Now I go into music. This is my final journey, so to speak. I learned so much about acting being a teacher. You got to keep these people alive. I mean, they have to, they have to have a smile in their face. They have to have to be eager to want to learn, and you have to make it interesting. And that's what doing plays is all about, you making it interesting, I mean, there are times in a play that you don't hear a pin drop. I mean, you know that the word riveting, you know that you have them. You know that they'll listen to every single word, every single expression on your face. That's what you have to do as a teacher, if you can, okay? Because then you got them. You got them. They'll do anything for you, I mean, I recall several times my kids tell me, "Oh, Mr. Jacobs, you're crazy." I said, "Oh, thank you very much. I love that you say that to me." It's an absolute delight being with young kids. I don't know about high school level or junior, but being with younger kids, they themselves are so funny at times. Some of the things that come out of their mouth is incredible. So they kept me young. You don't really know the effect you're having on children until years later when they meet me and they, "Oh, Mr. Jacobs, oh my God, Mr. Jacobs, I had you as a teacher, I loved you." They didn't say that to me when I was, when they were 10. My teachers that had me would faint dead away on the floor. They would never believe in a million years that I became, and neither would I, for that matter. I was very, very fortunate because I had no way of making a living. I didn't belong in this world, really. I would cry in front of a kid if I had to. I mean, I was just totally myself. It's interesting. I had teacher friends who, when they were in the teacher's room, they were so different than they were in a classroom. They think they have to be somebody else. You don't have to be. You have to be yourself. Is what you have to be. Being someone else is false. It's phony, and the kids pick it up right away. I'm in the teacher's room. Where we had lunch. I see a poster on the wall. Dinosaurs smoking cigarettes. And it said, "This is the way dinosaurs became extinct." I said, "What a fantastic idea of telling you not to smoke." But they're not saying, "Don't smoke because it's bad for you." I mean, nobody pays attention to that crap. So I got very excited. I ran into my classroom, after lunch. I said, "This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it on a blackboard. You're going to tell me all the things that you think." And remember, these are 10, 11-year-old kids. What you think that are wrong in the world. And I'm going to make a list of it. And then you're going to pick one that you feel good about. And we're going to make up a poster. And then I told them what I just saw in the teacher's room. I also told them that one of my favorite powerful commercials about something that needed to be changed in the world was pollution. And I don't know if you ever saw this, an Indian standing on the side of the road watching cars come by with the mufflers, with smoke coming out of there. And he just had tears coming down his eye. Didn't say a word, just tears coming. That struck me, for me personally, as one of the best advertisements I've ever seen. It moved me. One girl blew my mind. This little girl hardly said a word in the class. She drew a picture of herself normally, and then she drew a picture of herself distorted, looking into a mirror. And she said, "If you take drugs, you may never see yourself again." And that made me cry. It's making me cry now. An 11-year-old kid with a thought like that. I always wanted to learn how to play the piano, ever since my Army days. So at 70 years of age, I decided to take piano lessons. And after 14 years of lessons, I have to confess, I'm just okay. But what I began to love was writing melodies. So every week I wrote a melody with chords, and that became part of my lesson. So after 10 years, I accumulated around 500 melodies, and since then, reduced them to 200 of my favorites. I just love sitting at the piano and playing some of my melodies. It takes me into another world. I was so jealous of guys in the Army who could sit down on the piano and start playing. There's so much waste of time in the Army if you're not fighting, and thank God I missed that. I was stationed in Japan. I never got to Korea. Right away I knew that it's going to be almost impossible for me to become a very good piano player, because there's so many habits that I had that I couldn't break. The left hand playing something and the right hand playing something else. That alone is I mean, now I'm much better at it, but in the beginning, my both hands wanted to play the same thing. I started to tinkle with melodies, and that became very interesting to me. My melodies, I'm trying to bring us back to the 40s and the 50s, where I think are the best melodies ever written. The Cole Porters, the Gershwins, Rodgers and Hammerstein, I mean, they were just the greatest music writers, songwriters in the world. I'm talking about songs, so all my songs are like that.
You won't care if I can be here on the street where you live.
So in love with you, my love.
So in love.
Maybe I shall meet him Sunday, maybe Monday, maybe not.
Believe it or not, a lot of my beginning ideas, it doesn't seem to be happening to me anymore. So in the shower, I used to start singing in the shower, and the acoustics in the shower seemed so different. And I said, boy, I like this. What I'd have to do is shut the shower, after taking the shower, I'd have to quickly dry, everything. I had to remember, and I kept saying the beginning of the tune over and over and over again until I got down to the piano, So yeah, lots of beginnings of a song. I always write the melody before the chords. The melody comes first, and then the chords. When I write a song with words, every word has a melody to it. Every syllable in the word has a melody to it. I've been very, very anxious about getting a lyricist. I cannot find a lyricist. And here I'm finding 20 of them, all at once. I couldn't find one. I think it's wonderful. It's probably going to make me cry. There's so much love there. I'm so grateful, God. My daughter's, she's a miracle. She's my dream come true.
Thank you.